please be turning to Acts chapter 10. Acts chapter 10. I want to thank Tom for those thoughts about the Navy SEALs. However, if after 5 minutes of preaching, somebody starts singing, that will not be good. You are not drowning in quicksand, you're just listening to me. Somebody's just getting that. We have been methodically working our way through the book of Acts and let the story each week set our agenda for the morning. I think that the Holy Spirit has been doing a pretty good job of whooping us week to week with what we need to be thinking and praying about. So we're just going to continue to go with that. Does that sound good? So we continue reading where we finished up last week. Kind of, probably as much as any chapter that we'll study, like a multi-part drama. And so I'm going to be pointing to different areas that I want you to be visualizing in your mind's eye, as if this was a stage, and we've got stage lights for here, and we've got stage lights for here, and we've got what's going to be going on, not on the screen per se, but up here, because Peter's going to be up on a rooftop. Everybody with me? All right. It'll make sense as we go. But I want you to visualize it as a kind of a dramatic reenactment. At Caesarea, there was a man named Cornelius, an officer of close to 100 men, a centurion, in what was known as the Italian regiment. He and all his family were devout and God-fearing. He gave generously to those in need and prayed to God regularly. One day at about 3 in the afternoon, he had a vision. He distinctly saw an angel of God who came to him and said, Cornelius. So, right here, the spots come on, and there's a man in white, and Cornelius in his military garb. Cornelius stared at him in fear. "What is it, Lord?" he asked. The angel answered, "Your prayers and gifts to the poor have come up as a memorial offering before God. Now send men to Joppa to bring back a man named Simon, who is called Peter. He is staying with Simon the tanner, whose house is by the sea." When the angel who spoke to him had gone, Cornelius called 2 of his servants and a devout soldier who was one of his attendants. He told them everything that had happened and sent them to Joppa. Lights go dim. Stage lights come on a different part of the stage. The camera is panning on travelers on the road, and then light comes on to a rooftop. Verse 9. About noon, the following day, as they were on their journey and approaching the city, Peter went up on the roof to pray. He became hungry and wanted something to eat. And while the meal was being prepared, he fell into a trance. He saw heaven open and something like a large sheet being let down to earth by its 4 corners. It contained all kinds of 4-footed animals, as well as reptiles of the earth and birds of the air. Then a voice told him, "Get up, Peter, kill and eat." "Surely not, Lord," Peter replied. "I've never eaten anything impure or unclean." The voice spoke to him a second time. "Do not call anything impure that God has made clean." This happened 3 times. And immediately the sheep was taken back to heaven. Lights come on, 2 places on stage now. Peter is still lit up. And now we have travelers coming on stage. While Peter was wondering, verse 17, about the meaning of the vision, The men sent by Cornelius found out where Simon's house was and stopped at the gate. They called out, asking if Simon, who was known as Peter, was staying there. While Peter was still thinking about the vision, the Spirit said to him, Simon, 3 men are looking for you, so get up, go downstairs. Do not hesitate to go with them, for I have sent them. Peter went down, tromp, 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 from upper stage down to center stage. Peter went down and said to the men, I'm the one you're looking for. Why have you come? The men replied, we have come from Cornelius, the centurion. He is a righteous and God-fearing man, who is respected by all the Jewish people. A holy angel told him to have you come to his house, so that he could hear what you have to say. Then Peter invited the men into the house to be his guests. So far, it's all preparation. It's all opening scenes, setting the stage for the climax that comes at the end of the chapter. But each move on the stage is important. But the vision sequence with Peter on the rooftop, what does it mean? What message is God trying to communicate to Peter? Clearly, Peter isn't getting it. I'm the one you're looking for. Why have you come? Peter is not connecting vision and current reality. Last chapter, chapter 9, men arrived from Joppa to Lydda, saying, come quickly. So in Peter's mind, maybe this is about another healing. Not sure, who knows? But a Roman soldier? Not a good sign. But the play continues. Verse 23. The next day, Peter started out with them, and some of the brothers from Joppa went along. The following day, so they traveled for 2 days, the following day he arrived in Caesarea. Cornelius was expecting them and called together his relatives and close friends. As Peter entered the house, now please visualize this scene. As Peter enters the house, Cornelius met him and fell at his feet in reverence. But Peter made him get up. Stand up. I am only a man myself. Poor Peter. It's all so confusing. First, he's hungry. Then he has this weird vision. Then a Roman soldier shows up at his doorstep. He travels for 2 days, and now this Roman commander falls at his feet in reverence. Connect the dots for me, God. None of this is making any sense at all. Well, why not? Why is it so hard for Peter to connect the dots for himself? Because Peter is a devout Jew who is looking at reality through the eyes of a devout first-century Jew. But God is challenging his way of looking at reality, especially spiritual reality. Hence the vision. The 3 times repeated, confusing, and unsettling vision that for a good Jew would have made his skin crawl. But what has shaped Peter's very Jewish way of looking at the world? Can we take a time out? The play will continue in a minute. This is intermission. Can we take a time out? For a very brief history lesson. For a sweeping overview of some key events in Jewish history. The story opens again like a series of vignettes. It opens with God speaking to Abram. Not Abraham, but Abram. The father of what will become the Jewish people. Yes, Abram becomes Abraham, but he's not even Abraham yet. He's just Abram. Genesis chapter 12. Beginning in verse 1. The Lord said to Abram, leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. What is to be the relationship between Abram and the rest of the world, the rest of the people on the planet? Please don't miss this. All peoples on earth will be blessed through you. Looking at this statement from 2020 hindsight, and with the interpretive key of prophetic fulfillment, we know now that he is talking about God's sending of Jesus, a descendant of David, to die for the sins of the world. But Abraham's descendants were to be a blessing to other nations even before the coming of Christ. 300 years ago from Abram, 300 plus, from Abram to Abraham to Moses. And now we have the children of Israel coming out of Egypt, going through the Red Sea, seeing Pharaoh's army destroyed, seeing the plagues, seeing the mighty hand of God working on their behalf. And as they're out in the wilderness, in the book of Leviticus chapter 11 verses 43, we see part of what shaped Peter's position about the animals. Verse 43 of Leviticus 11 says, "Do not defile yourselves by any of these creatures. Do not make yourselves unclean by means of them, or be made unclean by them. I am Yahweh your God. Consecrate yourselves and be holy, because I am holy. Do not make yourselves unclean by any creature that moves about on the ground." And if you read the rest of Leviticus, he names specifically which animals and what are the criteria. So there's no question about what qualifies. Lambs, good. Pigs, bad. Locusts, good. Scorpions, okay. Lobster, bad. We go, no, lobster, good. No, lobster was a creeping thing. But locusts were okay. Do not make yourselves unclean by any creature that moves about on the ground. I am the Lord who brought you up out of Egypt to be your God. As a result of that, since I'm the one who led you out of Egypt to be your God, be holy. Why? Because I am holy, and I want you to be like me. I'm distinctive. I'm different. I'm not like the gods of Egypt. I'm not like the gods of Greece. I'm not like the gods of Rome. I'm not like the gods of the Scandinavians, the Norse gods. I'm different. Therefore, you need to be different. So, certain foods off limits for you folks. Why? Because of holiness. Don't practice certain customs like sacrificing your children to the flames. Don't bring me your children to be burned alive. Okay, why? Because of holiness. Don't get too chummy with the locals. Why? Because of holiness. And what did the descendants of Abraham do? They practiced the local customs just like God told them not to. And they married the local women just like God told them not to. And as a result, they worshiped the local deities and abandoned their devotion to Yahweh. Instead of being different, but blessing the nations around them. They were to interact with the nations around them. They were to be involved with them. They just weren't supposed to practice their customs and eat their food and marry their women, because there would have been a corrupting influence. God said, be in their world, but don't let their world influence you. Instead, they became just like the nations around them. So, in 721 BC, the Assyrians take the northern 10 tribes into captivity, into exile, and they're never seen or heard from again. And then, in 587 BC, the Babylonians take the southern kingdom of Judah into exile. But here, the Jews stay together and vow that they will never get too chummy with their neighbors again. That the price that they paid with the temple destroyed, with their children slaughtered, and all the terrible devastation. The walls of Jerusalem torn down. Never again. So from 538 to 432 BC, different waves of exiles are returning to Jerusalem. The last wave under the direction of Nehemiah. And they vow as a people, standing out all together in the time of Ezra and then in the time of Nehemiah, they vow, Yad Vashem, never again. Never again. Never again will they worship other gods. Never again will they get too chummy with their neighbors. And so the downside of that was wherever in the world Jews conducted business, they formed little pockets, little ghettos, little tight, closed communities that didn't interact with their neighbors except to do business. I value your money, but I don't value you. We're tight. We're God's people. And we're going to do our thing, but we'll interact financially with you. They are not contaminated by the Gentiles, but neither are they a blessing to the nations around them. And so from 432 BC until around 42 to 43 AD, when Peter is having his vision, Jewish culture has had about 500 years to become rigidly bound in its understanding of who is in and who's out. We're in, and everybody else is out. Jews, good. Samaritans, bad. Men, good. Women, bad. And so the rabbis will write that all that Gentiles are good for is to serve as kindling for the fires of hell. How many of you are Gentiles? How many of you are Jewish? How many of you are Gentiles? Gentiles, raise your hand. There are only two of us that I know in the room that have even some Jewish blood coursing in our veins. So all the rest of you, can you smell that cinder? That's what the rabbis taught. I'm not making that up. You can read it. There is a rigid wall separating Jews from anybody else. Not quite what God intended when he spoke to Moses about guidelines for holiness. And so Peter now can't imagine a world where Gentiles might become candidates to receive the preaching of the gospel. That's not even a possibility to him. Not even a blip on the radar screen. Everywhere else where Jewish crowds form, Peter automatically, it's his default setting. Ooh, here's a crowd. I preach the good news of Jesus. But here his response is to ask, so, I had a vision, you had a vision, why'd you send for me? There's a group of people that have assembled. He walks into a room filled with people. There's a crowd. If they were Jews, he'd know exactly what to do. He says, okay, cool, you had a dream, I had a dream. What do you want? He's clueless. We can't even imagine the seismic shift that is occurring in Peter's well-ordered little Jewish world. Get up, Peter, kill and eat. Never, Lord, I've never eaten anything impure or unclean. Do not declare unclean what God has made clean. This happened 3 times, and immediately the sheep was taken back to heaven. It's almost like God saying, okay, here's the first one, Peter. Do you get it? No. All right, let's try again. All right, let's do the sheep thing again, guys. Down comes the sheep. All the animals. Okay, kill and eat. No, never. Peter, do not declare unclean what God has declared clean. Do you get it, Peter? Not so much. Let's try a third time. Peter seems to do things in threes. 3 denials, 3 times do you love me, 3 times the sheet has to come down. Peter's all about threes, apparently. Peter, do you get it? No. 2 days later, after traveling all the way to Caesarea, he still doesn't get it. Out of your bunker, Peter. Salvation needs to come to the Gentiles, Peter. God's people need to be a blessing to the people around them. Verse 27. Talking with Cornelius, Peter went inside and found a large gathering of people. Any other time, Peter knows exactly what to do. But listen to what Peter says. Even at this point, he said to them, "You are well aware that it is against our law for a Jew to associate with a Gentile or to visit him. But God has shown me that I should not call any man impure or unclean." There's a crack in the wall now. It's beginning to be pried open. He's beginning to understand. "So when I was sent for, I came without raising any objections." May I ask why you sent for me? May I ask why you sent for me? At this point? Verse 30, Cornelius answered, 4 days ago I was in my house, praying at this hour at 3 in the afternoon. Suddenly a man in shining... Now, Peter's already heard this story. It's not like this is new information. But stay tuned. Suddenly a man in shining clothes stood before me and said, "Cornelius, God has heard your prayer." A Gentile's prayer, unheard of. God has heard your prayer and remembered your gifts to the poor. Send to Joppa for Simon, who is called Peter. He is a guest in the home of Simon the tanner, who lives by the sea. So I sent for you immediately, and it was good of you to come. Thank you so much for being here. Now, we are all here in the presence of God to listen to everything the Lord has commanded you to tell us. Peter, do you get it? Peter, do you get it? Peter, do you get it? We are here to listen to everything God has commanded you to tell us. And what might that be? Then Peter began to speak, verse 34. I now realize how true it is that God does not show favoritism. That is, it's hard to come out of a Jewish mouth. We are God's chosen people. We're special. We're holy. You're not. This is tough. But accepts men from every nation that fear him and do what is right. You know the message God sent to the people of Israel. Had to get that little dig in. You know what God sent to the people of Israel? Telling the good news of peace through Jesus Christ, who is Lord of all. And then Peter's on the roll, and he's in his groove, and he knows what to say, and things are smooth sailing. Peter knows what to preach once he knows he has a legit audience. What God started with Abraham and promised to Abraham needed to be continued through Peter. Brothers and sisters, the call is no less clear for us today. That we are to be a blessing to the Gentiles of the 21st century. We are to be proclaimers of the good news and a blessing to the unbelievers of our generation. The people of God are not here for ourselves for what we want or think our needs are. We are here to be a blessing. Paul will describe it this way in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, beginning in verse 14. For Christ's love compels us, because we are convinced that one died for all, Jews and Greeks. And therefore all died. And he died for all, Jews and Greeks. That those who live should no longer live for themselves, but for him who died for them and was raised again. So, from now on. From now on. What we did in the past, okay, fine, that's yesterday. But from now on, we regard nobody from the world's way of looking at things, from a worldly point of view. Though we once regarded Christ in this way, we do so no longer. We're smarter now. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, Jews or Greeks, that person is a new creation. The old is gone, behold, the new has come. All this is from God. It's not from us. We wouldn't have come up with this. All this is from God, who reconciled us to himself through Christ. But he didn't stop there. He gave us the ministry of reconciliation. That God was reconciling the world to himself in Christ, not counting men's sins against them. And he has committed to us. It's just as relevant in 2015 as it was in 42, 43 AD. And he has committed to us the message of reconciliation. We are therefore Christ's ambassadors, as though God were making his appeal through us. We implore you on Christ's behalf, be reconciled to God. Sharing Christ with our world. It's not just sharing Christ with each other, not just hanging out with each other, not just meeting our own needs. God has committed to us the ministry of reconciliation. God is making his appeal through us. Be reconciled to God. So this morning, who are you not sharing it with? Who are you not comfortable, forget going out to, who are you not comfortable having sit on the same pew with you because they're different? Here in our nice, safe church building. Yes, Amelia, I saw you looking at Manny and Marty. I'm not sure about this guy. I bet those pork-eating Gentiles really freaked out some of those pious Jews. You think? But it's not pork or not pork that saves, but the blood of Christ. And what are some of our pork issues in the 21st century? What are some of our pork issues?
Bacon wrapped hot dogs.
What's that?
Bacon wrapped hot dogs.
That's a serious issue, huh?
Yeah.
So, it's hard to come back after that, Sarah. What is the point of Acts chapter 10? Why did the Holy Spirit inspire Luke to record this story for us? Because there's a huge shift. Last week we were setting it up. God moved Peter from here to here to here to here, and then finally he's in Joppa staying at the house of Simon the tanner, whose house is by the sea. And that was all to set up these guys coming from Cornelius' house so that Peter could go over here to Cornelius' house and speak to this group of people. Why? Because God wanted to throw the door open for the Gentiles, just like on the day of Pentecost he had for the Jews. And Peter had to be there. Well, God was moving Peter there. And now Peter is there. And this is a huge shift in an understanding of what it means to be reconciled to God. And who is a candidate for the gospel. I now realize how true it is, Peter says, that God does not show favoritism, but accepts people from every nation who fear him and do what is right. Hear me, brothers and sisters, this is important. Yes, fearing, respecting, honoring God is still part of the relationship, as is doing what is right. It's not everybody's okay. There's behavior that's not okay. We don't have the option to change God's rules. But often what we bind are not God's rules, but our own preferences. Verse 36, you know the message God sent to the people of Israel, telling the good news of peace. Do you need peace in your life? I bet you your neighbor does too. Have you been listening to the news about what's going on in Hungary and Austria right now, as a result of what's going on in Syria and Iraq right now? Do you think our world needs a dose of peace right now? Telling the good news of peace through Jesus Christ, who is Lord of all. Guess what? You know that message that was sent to Israel? That message that you're to be a blessing to all the nations around you? That message is for us just as much as it was for them. So So who should be excluded? Do we have the right to decide or exclude if God has thrown open the doors? Please, brothers and sisters, can we be an embracing people, a welcoming people, a going out from Jerusalem to Caesarea to proclaim the good news to those who previously we would never have considered possible candidates for the good news of Jesus? So where are you going to start? When are you going to start? That spotlight that was on Peter and his vision, and the spotlight that was on the guys traveling to Joppa, and the spotlight that was on Cornelius and Peter and their interactions, that spotlight shifts off of up here to out here. It's on me and it's on you. And the next act in the drama of the good news of salvation in Jesus Christ being proclaimed to our world, that spotlight is on us. Let's pray. Father, when we're too busy, too distracted, too troubled, too whatever, please forgive. And Father, give us the conviction and the courage to pursue you and to take the message that you have for us to those who don't know. We ask this prayer in the name of Jesus.